Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hope you're having a great day. My name is Eric. I'm glad you can make it because today we're going to be revisiting an old recipe, the sweet and spicy salami. We featured this salami back in Celebrate Sausage Season 2, where we took a beef jerky recipe where they took peppers and Dr. Pepper and converted it into a salami recipe. Well, in that recipe, we just use a little Dr. Pepper, and it was suggested in the comment section that perhaps the salami might turn out better if we reduced the Dr. Pepper and turned it into a syrup. And you know that my curiosity is going to get me on this one because I had to give it a shot. And today we get to see the end result of the sweet and spicy salami version 2.0. Thanks for joining us. Let's get into it.
All right, so first ingredient on the table, Dr. Pepper. The original recipe, it was a beef jerky recipe, called for 2 cans. And in our original salami, we only used a 1/4 cup of Dr. Pepper. So we're going to actually take both of those cans, pour it into a little saucepan, and on a medium-low heat, we're just going to go ahead and reduce this. Now, I did learn a very valuable lesson on this first attempt at reducing Dr. Pepper. As you can see, we've reduced this down to the absolute max. That's about a 1/4 cup of syrup at this point. And when we pour this into a small ramekin, it's really, really thick. And as it sat on my counter and cooled, this is what it turned into. Very interesting. Now, I did try to add water back to it, and I was able to dissolve it and turn it back into a liquid. But at this state, with it being reduced as much as it was very bitter and had lost all sweetness. So this reduction really had lost the essence of Dr. Pepper. So we're going to toss that and give this another go. What we're going to do different on attempt number 2, same 2 cans. We're going to bring it to a boil, then reduce the heat, bring it down to like a medium. And instead of reducing this down to a 1/4 cup, we're going to reduce this down to a 1/2 cup. So 2 cans will get reduced down to a 1/2 cup, and this is what that looks like. So I'm hoping that this will still retain, the same qualities in just a more concentrated version of Dr. Pepper. And when it's nice and hot, very liquidy, but even more encouraging, once it's cooled, it's stayed a liquid and looks like we're good to go. All right, let's go ahead and get our meat together. And for this particular salami, I'm just going to be using a portion of the pork shoulder. If you recognize this cut, this is the copa muscle, and it's got beautiful marbling. And so I'm going to take that into account when I add my fat, but it's partially frozen. I'm just going to cut it up into small pieces. And then we're going to add back fat. So we're going to end up with about a 70-30 lean to fat ratio after it's all said and done. This is going to go into the freezer. I want the temperature to be around 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So while that's chilling, let's look at what we're working with. We've got our chocolate habanero, absolutely amazing pepper. Prolific grower. We've got our casings. So we're going to be using natural hog casings for this salami, and they're not too big. I think they're 38 millimeter casings from the sausage maker. The smaller the casing, the quicker it dries. So this should take about a month, maybe 5 weeks, give or take. And but you could use whatever size you want. Spice profile, we've got garlic, pepper, salt, nothing complicated. A little curing salt added into the mix as well. Here is our Dr. Pepper reduction. So notice how it's still a liquid, and very important, it still retains its sweetness. This is our mold culture, known as Mold 600. Beneficial edible mold. It protects the salami. And on this side, we have our bacterial starter culture. We're going to be using Flavor of Italy's bacterial starter culture. All right, a quick little chop, and by now our meat should be partially frozen. So 31, 32 degrees should be the temperature of your meat. And we're going to be using a 6 millimeter plate, which should give us some pretty interesting particle definition. If you grind your meat when it's partially frozen, it should come out relatively firm, loose, just like that, which is exactly what we're looking for. But if you grind your meat too warm, it could smear the fat, which will affect the texture and the rate at which it dries. So just make sure that your meat is 31, 32 degrees at all times. Let's go ahead and add our ingredients and give this a mix until our meat batter is nice and sticky. All right, let's go ahead and finish up the process by fermenting our salami. And fermenting your salami doesn't have to be complicated. You know, we get a lot of questions about people building fermentation chambers and whatnot. Let me just show you how I ferment my salami most of the time. I'm just going to go ahead and wrap it in cling film. And what this is going to do, this is going to lock in the moisture. So we're going to get a really high level of humidity, which is what's necessary for proper fermentation. And the next thing I'm going to do is just set it on my kitchen counter. I also made a separate packet. This was a little bit of the mincemeat left over in the stuffing horn. We're going to set that right there. And that's literally just going to stay on my kitchen counter. The temperature required for Flavor of Italy in order to ferment properly is anywhere between 75 and 85 Fahrenheit or 23 and 29 Celsius. The humidity should be 95%, and you should be fermenting this for anywhere between 18 to 24 hours. Your target pH is 4.9 to 5.2. So it's been about 20 hours later. Let's go ahead and test the pH of that little sample packet I made. Our little sample definitely feels different after fermentation. It no longer feels, tacky and sticky like it was before fermentation. So that's really good. We're going to be using an Apera Instruments pH meter to test the sample. And remember, anywhere between 4.9 and 5.2 is what we're shooting for. And we have a pH of 4.94. Perfect. Now that we've hit our pH target, we can go ahead and start drying our salami. And the pH is really just a safety hurdle, and that's going to create an environment that's less hospitable to unwanted bacteria during the drying process. So let's go ahead and stick this into a modified refrigerator. We built this, very simple to build. I'll put a link at the end of this video if you want to learn how we built it. Basically, we just have a couple controllers that control the temperature and the humidity, and we have a humidifier and a dehumidifier that sort of keep that all in balance. So we're going to place that in there, and the temperature is set to be around 55 Fahrenheit or 13 Celsius. And the humidity is going to be at a pretty much constant average of 80%. We're targeting a weight loss of 35 to 40%, and depending on the diameter of your salami, will determine how long it's in there. This particular salami only took about a month, and it looks like we've got a little bit of mold coverage on the salami. That mold is from the chamber. It's completely edible. It's Penicillium nalgiavense, but I'm going to remove the casing, which in turn is going to remove the mold, so not that big of a deal. I personally find that sometimes natural casings tend to get a little chewy if you leave them on, but you can leave them on and eat it if you want. Not a problem there. All right, so let's just see what the center cut looks like. Beautiful marbling, specks of chocolate habanero. Ooh, that looks good. All right, so let's cut it up and then give it a taste.
All right, everybody, time for the moment of truth. The Dr. Pepper Sweet and Spicy Salami version 2.0. So if you want to see the original version 1.0, I'll put a link at the end of this video. So let me just kind of tell you what I'm thinking about this salami. So right off the bat, great bind on the salami. So I'm very pleased with that. It dried evenly. You know, our conditions are dialed in our chamber, so we've got no dry ring or anything like that. And absolutely, just gorgeous marbling. Now you may be thinking that is way too much fat inside this salami, but this is a standard 70% lean, 30% fat ratio, which is typical for salamis, but the way that we process the fat in the recipe gives us absolutely beautiful marbling, and so I'm very pleased with that. One thing that's really standing out to me about this salami is the color. I mean, the colors of this particular salami are muted or a little dull compared to version 1.0. So let me pull up a picture of 1.0 so you can see what that looks like, and I'll do a side by side, and you can tell me. So version 1.0, eye-popping. I mean, very bright, very pink, very red. Version 2.0 looks a little earthy, so it makes me think that whatever's in Dr. Pepper interacted with the bacteria that we added in a way that inhibited it from doing its job, especially the bacteria that influences, you know, the color development and the aroma development, because this, although smells great, doesn't quite smell like the other one. And so interesting thing to notice about that. So let's just go ahead and give it a taste and see how it tastes. Okay. Was not expecting that. Wow. Texture's on point. Fat is nice and creamy. It just melts on your mouth. The flavor's good. It's just different. It's not quite like the first one. Right on the front end, I'm not getting the same acidity. So I do believe that the bacteria were negatively influenced by the addition of the Dr. Pepper. Although it still did ferment, we didn't get the complete spectrum of bacteria that you would typically know out of flavor of Italy. I'm also getting just this really interesting and kind of subtle caramel type of sweetness. We did not get that in version 1.0, but it's coming through on this one, and it's actually not unpleasant. I am getting just the slight earthiness from the salami, and the amount of peppers that we put in, well, that's absolutely perfect. I mean, we're getting the right amount of heat without it being overwhelming. And so those peppers add just a fruity, slight smokiness to the overall flavor. Overall, it's not a bad salami. Personally speaking, not really the flavor profile that I'm looking for in a salami, so I probably won't make it again. But as a first-time experiment, if this is something that you want to try, give it a go. You can catch the recipe link in the description box below. And if you have any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comment section. If you like this video or got anything out of it, a great big thumbs up is always appreciated. And if you're new to our channel, don't forget to click that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss a single upload. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.